All right, Math 1. Today, I thought I wrote this down. That's okay. Today is the 8th. The agenda is on the sideboard. We're going to write our homework in our planner. We should have already completed the warm-up. Are there any questions about the warm-up? Okay. Today, we're going to continue working on factoring trinomials. And I am going to push us to get to the activity, the group activity that we have today, okay? So we need to stay on point, right? Okay, let's write our homework in our planner. Check off yesterday. If you watched the video, check it off. If you completed the homework, check it off. If you studied, remember, this week's quiz review is on linear functions, okay? Our quiz review is on linear functions. Our quiz at the end of the week is also on factoring. Layla, what's wrong? Layla, what's wrong? Okay. All right, baby. Math 1, please write only the Math 1 homework. Our homework help video, if you need help, please make sure you watch the video. That will go to Remind at 2 o'clock. It's already on Canvas, okay? It's already on Canvas. Make sure that you complete the homework and make sure that you study. Study current notes and the old notes that you need to go back over and review. Remember, we talked about toilet time. We need to review linear word problems, linear functions, okay? Don't forget about tutoring tomorrow. Did we write that down already? Yes, we did. Please do not forget about tutoring tomorrow after school, okay? All right, if we don't have any questions about the warm up, put this in your folder, please, and take out your notebook. Take out your interactive notebook. Take out your interactive notebook. I'm going to look over 21 again. I'm going to pause for the calls. Okay, so we're on page 22. All right, so let's go ahead and start with an example. Do this one. All right, so let's start with this first example here, number 1. All right, I'm going to walk you through how to do it. You remember, if you cannot write and listen at the same time, put your pencil down. I'll give you time to copy at the end. Okay, you know how you are as a learner. All right, so we have 3p squared minus 2p minus 5. Okay. All right. So first thing that we need to notice about this trinomial is that this trinomial is a quadratic function. How do we know by looking at this trinomial that it's a quadratic function? Yes. Very good. Because the x squared or the variable squared term, that's the highest degree. When you have an x squared term or variable to the second power term, that is what's making it form a U shape when you graph it. Okay, so this is the reason that this trinomial is a quadratic function. All right. Okay, so this is how you factor it. Unlike factoring the other one, where your leading term, your x squared term, or your variable squared term was a 1, this one's not a 1. So this is what you're going to do. You're going to do the same thing by multiplying the first and the last number together. When we multiply that first and last number together, the first or what's the number called that's in front of the variable? Does anybody remember? Starts with a C. Coefficient. Oh, what's the number that has no variable attached to it? The constant. So you're going to multiply this coefficient and this constant together. When you multiply 3 times a -5, what does that give you? A -15. Okay, so that much is going to be the same. And I purposely did that in the other example so we'd already be used to doing that, okay? So now you're going to be thinking, what two numbers can be multiplied? I'm going to abbreviate multiply. Can be multiplied together to give me that negative 15. And when you add them, you get that middle number of a negative 2. Let's think about it. What two numbers can be multiplied to give you a negative 15? And when you add those two numbers together, you get a sum of negative 2. Yes, babe. You said 5 times, what'd you say? When I do 5 plus a negative 3, what answer does that give me? Positive 2. So that's not going to work, okay? Good try. All right, Savannah? Negative 5 times a positive 3. When I add negative 5 plus 3, yes, that will give me that negative 2. All right, so that part is the same. Now watch this next part because this is going to be different from what we did before. You are going to rewrite the first and the last number. So this first term is 3p to the second. This last term is negative 5. Okay. Now in the middle, you're going to use these two numbers right here. That's going to give me a sum of the middle number. So it doesn't matter which one I write first. I'm going to write negative 5p plus 3p. And that sum gives me a negative 2. So this is what I do next. Any questions about that part? All right, please write it if you hadn't had a chance to write. Please write that before we move to the next step. Are there any questions about how we did this step? Anyone still writing? All right, let's continue. This is the part we've already seen before. Now we're going to factor by grouping. First, we always look, and I should have asked this question first. I knew by looking at it, but you may not have. You always look for GCF first, okay? There is no GCF for all three numbers, and that's why we proceed to do what we did. There's no GCF for all four numbers, so we're going to factor this by grouping. That means that we're going to factor the first two numbers together, and we're going to factor the last two terms together. Let's think. What is the greatest common factor between these two terms here? Greatest common factor? No, not out of these two. We got 3p squared here and negative 5p. 5 won't go into 3. P. They both have a factor of p in common. That is the greatest common factor. Don't forget, remember, if you can't tell what the greatest common factor is, write the prime factorization for all of the numbers. Okay? With 3p to the second, the prime factorization, since this is a prime number, is going to be 3 times p times p. The prime factorization for negative p, we take out a negative 1. This is a prime number, so it's times 5 times p. The only factor that they have in common is that p. Other than 1 is going to be p. So GCF is p. So what can I multiply times p to give me 3p to the second? 3p. 3p is left. Very good. So we're going to put positive 3p. What can I multiply times p to give me a negative 5p? A negative 5. Very good. The first two terms are factored. Any questions about that? Okay. Let's factor the second two terms together. Anthony, you okay? All right. What's the GCF between these two terms here? 1. Okay. So we got positive 1. Okay. They don't have any other factors in common, so we have to use 1 as the greatest common factor. So we multiply 1. What can we multiply times 1 to give me 3p? 3p. What about negative 5? Negative 5. Okay. What do these two terms right here have in common? They're both being multiplied by the same binomial. So we can put p plus 1 in one of the parentheses, and then the other, we're going to put the binomial that both terms were being multiplied. If I were to multiply this back out, this right here would be my answer. Therefore, these two binomials are factors of this trinomial. This is my answer. Please write if you hadn't written it yet, and I'm going to pause for the calls. Any questions? So it's going to be a little jumpy in the video, y'all. All right, so we're going to rewrite the first and the last number. So this is 2n squared minus the 9, okay? So in the middle, doesn't matter which one of these numbers you write first. You're going to get the same answer no matter which one you write first. So if you write a different one first than me, as long as you did the math right, your answer is still going to come out the same, okay? So I'm going to write plus 6 first, n, and it's okay if you wrote the 3 first, minus 3n. Your answer, remember, is going to be the same if you did the math right. There's no GCF for all four terms, so we're going to factor by grouping. We're going to factor the first two by using GCF and the last two by using GCF. What's the greatest common factor of the first two terms? Okay, we got 2n. Greatest common factor is 2n. What can we multiply times 2n to give us 2n squared? N. Okay. What can we multiply times 2n to give us this positive 6n? 3 plus 3. Okay. All right, let's look at the second two terms. What's the greatest common factor between these last two terms? Negative 3. Okay. What can we multiply times negative 3 to give us a negative 3n? N. What can we multiply times negative 3 to give us a negative 9? Plus 3. Okay. Lastly, we know that these two terms are being multiplied by the same binomial. So we can put these two numbers in the same parentheses, 2n minus 3. And beside it, we can write the binomial that both terms are being multiplied by. These two binomials are going to be our factors for this trinomial. If I multiply these two binomials together, my answer is going to be the original problem. This is going to be my answer. Raise your hand if you got that right. Okay. All right, that's a little more. Okay, let's try another one. Any questions about that before we go to the next one? All right, I'm going to move to the next page because you know I write big. You keep writing on that same page if you have space. But you know I write too big. All right, so let's try this one. Let's try 3n to the second minus 8n plus 4. Try this one. Let's try that. All right, y'all, let's go through this one and then we're going to do a little bit of practice, okay? All right, let's try this one. We always look for GCF out of all three of the terms. There is not a GCF other than one, okay? This is a trinomial where the leading coefficient is a number other than one. This is a quadratic function because it has a variable squared term, and that's the highest degree, okay? All right, so we're going to multiply the first and the last numbers together. What does that give you? What does that give you? Positive 12. We're going to think what two numbers can be multiplied to give me that positive 12, but when I add them, I get a sum of which number?
6 times 2.
Okay, negative 8. Well, you already told me what. Yeah, that's okay, babe. All right, so what two numbers did you use for this one? Yes, Sierra? Negative 6 and negative 2. Good job, baby. Negative 6 plus a negative 2. Yes, it equals a negative 8. So we're going to use those two numbers. How'd you make out on that, Samaj? Are you okay? All right. So we're going to write the first and the last. Got the first term and we got the last. And in the middle, remember, it doesn't matter which one of these you write, first or second. Their sum is going to equal that middle number. So I'm going to write the negative 6n first minus the 2n. And as long as you do the math correctly, you're going to get the same answer regardless to whichever one you decided to write first. Okay? Remember, all four terms do not have a GCF other than one. So you are going to factor by grouping. You're going to factor using the GCF for the first two. I'm going to do the same for the last two. Any questions? What's the greatest common factor for the first two terms?
3n.
3n. Good job. What can I multiply times 3n to give me this 3n squared? N. What can I multiply times this 3n to give me a negative 6n? Negative 2. Good job, baby. Okay. All right, let's factor the last two terms. What's the greatest common factor between these two terms here?
Negative 2.
Negative 2. Okay. Now, why do you think we're going to take out a negative 2 versus taking out a positive 2? Does anybody know?
Because a negative times a negative is a positive.
Very good. And we want to make sure that these two terms, these two binomials are the same. Okay. So we're going to take out a negative to make that possible. Negative 2 times what is going to give me a negative 2n? N. Negative 2 times what is going to give us a positive 4? Negative 2. And do you see that these two binomials are exactly the same? So in my last step, I can put these two numbers in a parentheses together. It doesn't matter which parentheses or which binomial you write first, okay? You could see this one first. That doesn't matter. This is your answer. Any questions about that? All right, so in your notebook, I'm going to allow you to work with whomever you want to work with. But these, because I do, if you need help, I need you to collaborate with the people that are at your table. I'm going to be partially at that white table. Remember, you can come over there if you need help. And I'm going to tell you which problems that we're going to do. On the sheet, we're going to do problems number 1. Please put these in your notebook. 2, 7, 8, 9, and 11. These are the problems that I want you to work out and put in your notebook. Any questions? If you want to write on a sheet, that's fine. Just make sure you paste the sheet in the notebook. Do you understand? Okay. All right. I'm gonna count to 10. You should be in the location in which you want to work in. I want to see you at the table. You already know. Samaj, don't even play with me. I need to know. You won't come to tutoring. I done begged you to come to tutoring like 5,000 times, and you hadn't shown up yet. So I got to tutor you in class since I can't get you after class. All right, 1, 2, 3.